Um, my name is Kevin Alexander. This is my final project for psychology lifespan development. Also my first time making a video. So I went ahead and I broke mine up. I just took five different phases in the life or stages in the lifespan development. I went ahead got one from the infant, adolescence, middle ages, and the old age, and then the good death. I had a good death, and I guess I could start in order. So from the infant stage, I think that me personally, I don't really or didn't really understand a lot of things in terms of like how um, like like the mother and child bond develops and things of that nature. I really didn't think anything of it. I just assumed that you're born, you think this person is your mom, and just because you think this person is your mom, like innately, you just develop love for that person, and you end up being attached to them. Um, One of the myths that I learned from the building a secure attachment bond with your baby article was um, the myth was that they talk about. It says my baby is attached to me because I gave birth to them. That's actually a myth. The fact is that bonding and attachment does not automatically equate to love and vice versa. So essentially, um, you being bonded or attached to something doesn't mean you love it, and you're having love for something doesn't mean you are bonded and attached to it. Secure attachments increase the baby to trust you, making relationships, emotional balance, confidence, socialization, and seek support. So, the reason that a lot of times um, newborn mothers are stressed, or in the it's almost like they want the attachment, I guess, the secure attachment to happen, and they feel like they're not attached, or um, but once a baby is attached, it tends to make the relationship and social cues and things of that nature better. So, but yes, but just because you don't have initial attachment, I read this too. Just because you don't have initial attachment doesn't mean that you can't get it later on. The second one in adolescence. Adolescence has the storm and stress. There's a lot of insecurity, growth, and confusion, especially in terms of women who start their puberty at a younger age than men. Um, it's in westernized culture they develop it a lot faster, but another thing too, this is the reason I mention that is because during this time, from the article Spanking in Child Development, Gershoff goes on to talk about physically disciplining or corporal punishment in terms of your child. And with corporal punishment, there's actually there is no evidence that supports that. There's no evidence that supports that corporal punishment, in fact, makes your child more obedient. It said if anything, it actually causes a state of confusion. Um, it's almost like a resentment. It makes them not able to grasp the concept of what it is that you're trying to instill in them. So let's say you want them to stop doing something, so you spank them. It only in that short time, in that short amount of time of you spanking them, actually works, but it isn't long term. There is nothing long term that shows that it works. Um, that is Gershoff spanking about. Middle ages. I've always assumed like you learn about the or you hear about midlife crisis, and so you've got this person who's used to being young their whole life, and then they get a little bit older, and then now they just want to be young again, and they just want to do young things, or they have to have random purchases like cars or boats or whatever. Um, and that was the midlife crisis thing. It was like the you're the youngest old person here, kind of thing. But in actuality, um, you can, one of the things I've learned is that yes, you this is a phase, but you can go through this phase and come out the other end. You can come out the other end as healthy as if you were, or mentally sound as if you were in your 20s. The chapter from our textbook, the Middle Ages chapter in the textbook, gives some points as to what it is that you can do in this time frame, or in this emotional development or transitional phase, that you can do to make sure that you're still, even if you are 50, you can feel like you're 20. They talk about stay fine-tuned mentally, physically, emotionally. So go to the gym, you work out, you eat right, you find mentally stimulating, like whether it be articles, instruments. You can learn different languages, and these things, keeping your mind going, keeping your mind interested and really engaged. Not only does learning instruments and different languages help you in terms of just staying mentally like young or vibrant, if you, I don't want to say young, but mentally vibrant. It also helps with Alzheimer's. Um, that and the one of the biggest things that will help with your old age process that they suggest, and the last one on the list was the development of generative mission, meaning a sense of purpose. Like you want to, like, it's not just about you. You kind of want to branch out and affect the world around you or the environment around you. Um, yeah. Um, this is the fourth one. Was during old age. One random thing. I didn't even know that old age was split into two different kinds of ages. I'm guessing in westernized culture, where your lifespan is longer, they had to split up the age, and you have two different forms. There's old, and then young old, or old young age. Either way, vital involvement in old age was written by Erickson. I believe it was Erickson. Um, yeah, Eric Erickson and Rowan Erickson. I don't know if that's any type of relation, but yes, and a third author who their name escapes me. But it goes on, like my perception was that old people are um, what's the word I'm looking for? They're like they're depressed, they're hermits, um, they're just bitter until they die off. That's kind of how, especially with how I grew up, or with the people I grew up with, that was kind of our mentality with the older people. And then you might have, like, grandma loves you, but in your mind you're thinking like bitter old man. You're thinking of the guy yelling at you. Yet in actuality, old people, although they do have their depression and their sadness, and the emotional stress of people passing away, and them outliving friends and family, and that kind of thing is very it takes a toll on you. But they tend to focus more so on happier emotions, so or memories rather. They have selective not selective amnesia. They have what is it called? Selective optimization or something like that. But essentially, what it is they prefer to focus on uh, happier things. So they think about the good times. You see your grandkids, you enjoy them. You kind of just really focus on what makes you happy. They're more emotionally stable, meaning like they're not so caught up like in adolescence where you're like trying to figure out who you are, trying to figure out your emotions. They, for the most part, kind of know who they are, and so they focus on more pleasant ideas. Um, that and they're less verbal in the sense of like they use nonverbal, like they're more action oriented, so they're going to try to be more involved in the community or with their grandchildren or things around them, but that's their version of expressing how they want the rest of their life to play out. And then the fifth one was actually our last discussion post, aging to a good death. Um, for me, it was the confusion was you think that, and they talk about this in college. I mean, not in college, but in high school. When you go off to college, they make you talk about all the things that you can do when you go off to college. Excuse me. They make you talk about all the things that you can do when you go off to college in terms of like different careers and different interests that you may or may not have. They talk more so about like setting your career goals. Like, who do you want to be 5 years from now? Everybody always says that, and they say it to you at a young age, and you think like, oh, I'm left behind. I don't have it. I don't know what it is. This is that and the third. You kind of just psych yourself into thinking that I'm behind, like what they refer to as a social clock. Like, I'm behind because I don't know and everybody else knows what they want to do in terms of their life goals, career goals, educational goals. And there's a book called Majoring in Psychology, Achieving Your Educational Goals. And this is it's chapter 4, dedicated to specifically talking about your goals. Like, people just think goals is just like a big general. There's what they summarize into 3 different types of goals, which is your career, life, and educational goals. So the things you want to know, the things you want to happen in your life, and the things you want to happen in your career, whatever your career may be. And as you progress, they say, where do you want to be 5 years from now? 5 years from now, you're not going to be the same person that you were 5 years prior. Everyone knows that. But what you don't know is, or what I didn't know necessarily, was when you get to certain stages in your life, your goals change. So what you may have wanted in 2015 is not necessarily what you will want in 2020 or 25 or whatever the case may be moving forward. It's more so about adjusting your goals as they come to, as you feel you want different things in your life. You should make yourself accustomed to those things, especially when it comes to your life goals, because this goes on to later in life when you're looking at what a good death is. And I think that, well, no, I don't think that, but research has shown that over the past couple decades that the conversational piece of death is becoming more open. Prior to that, it was very like taboo, like it's not something you want to talk about, it's something you don't think about. But now it's more planned out, and as we're living longer, you have more time to. It was like an expiration date, and then you pass home. But as we're living longer, it's more so of coping with a longer life. So you don't want to get to the end of your life and get into those situations of regrets where, oh, what if I was here for these baseball games or soccer games, or what if I would have went to this school and chose this profession, or what if my father didn't make me become a lawyer, I was really meant to be a doctor. These are the kind of things that you don't want to be thinking about on your deathbed, because it ultimately keeps you from having what we call a successful aging process leading into a good death. And the aging process can also be physical. It doesn't have to necessarily be, but just for this specific one, my misunderstanding, or not even my unlearning, if you will, was more so about the the decisions of what kind of goals shape my life. And one of the common things that I've seen is that as long as your goals affect more than just yourself, um, it's like in philosophy we had this little the conversation of immortality and what that means. Is like, did you affect anything that lasts longer than you? Did your names echo in the history books or things of that nature? And even if it's not a major history book, or what if it's in your family's name? Did you do something special in your family that made your family never forget you? Yeah, those were my 5 takeaways. Those are my five things, just kind of being in general to give a little bit to the entire class, or at least every stage of the class. Those are the five things that really stuck out to me, especially the successful aging and good death, as I've had more than one class that touched, or more than one psychology class that touched on um, the concept of a good death and successful aging. Lifespan talks about it through like the physical everyday, and then my other class talked about it in terms of the individual and goals and things that you found to be most important. But yeah, those are my takeaways.